Welcome to Your Intended Message, the perfect place for leaders and promising professionals who want to convey the intended message for greater success. Every week, we interview experts who can help you communicate more effectively, whether that's one-to-one, one-to-few, or one-to-many. And perhaps the most important conversation, one-to-self. I'm your host, George Torok. My guest today is Anders Boulanger. Here's 3 facts I think you should know about Anders. 1, he's been a performer for all but 5 years of his life. That's the first 5. I'm guessing it's the first 5. He wasn't.
You're right. Yeah.
Number 2, for the past 2 decades, he's created engaging presentations for companies including Siemens, Fortinet, and Microsoft. I've heard of them. And 3, he's the founder and CEO of Engagify. Engagify, let's get that right.
That's
company dedicated to rehumanize business through engagement. That's, of course, if business ever was humanized, but it's time to humanize and maybe rehumanize. And here's a bonus fact about Anders. He's a barefoot runner. He's also a barehead runner, as you can see.
Yes.
Anders, welcome to Your Intended Message.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Delighted to be talking with you today. Your past includes a rich experience in entertainment and engagement. And these days, especially with this type of Zoom meeting that we're all having several times a day, engagement has suddenly become even more important, I think, because it's missing. People are missing. So, Anders, tell us what you're doing with Engagify and how that's helping the typical Zoom meeting become more successul.
Sure. So I think what happened here, George, is, I've been like all my life a performer, and I used to do something we call walk around magic, which was where you'd have to be at a cocktail hour or something like that, and you would go to groups of people and have to interrupt them and then convince them to watch you perform, right? And it's also similar to a street performer who doesn't even have a crowd to begin with, right? And has to kind of garner interest from passersby in order to actually build an audience. That all built into working for companies doing trade shows and attracting crowds of people to trade shows. So and when I say we, it's me and my team of certified infotainers really, cut our teeth and learned how to engage by that feedback loop of either people stay and watch or they leave. It's very clear whether or not you're being engaging because people are busy and they have other things to do and they will just leave. So that's how we kind of like codified a lot of the kind of the rules and engagement tactics that we teach in our trainings. And so now what we've done is we've used that to help companies and help sales teams a lot of the time be more engaging on these virtual calls, because there's a number of challenges that maybe aren't quite apparent at first, right? One being some people who have a personality and are outgoing and are good face-to-face, all of a sudden face some challenges with the virtual thing because their energy doesn't kind of come through. They don't have that ability to touch and break that barrier. They might be coming off flat in the virtual camera, in the virtual sense. They may not be used to the platform, so now they're kind of doing. And for the people who are watching this, I'll describe what I'm doing. But sometimes when they share a slide, they're hang on, and they got their mouse and they're moving all over the screen trying to figure out what's the next step. So maybe their ability with the platform is not, their proficiency with the platform is not where it should be. So there are multiple things that kind of stack up. And one of the things we also talk about too is the engagement gap. And this is the idea that your frontline people, and I talk a lot more about revenue teams, sales and marketing, but this can be anyone, right? The communicator, right, is maybe, unaware of what message they're sending. I mean, your intended message. I mean, right? It's the intention behind it, and then what is actually received is what's the important piece. But they might be unaware of what kind of message they're sending. And when I say that in a virtual sense, what is the camera angle that they have, right? Is it up the nose and it makes them look kind of snooty? Is it, is it down on them and making them look diminutive, right? Is there unconscious kind of, perceptions being sent? So they're unaware, they might be untrained. They might not have ever been trained how to either work a virtual meeting, or maybe they've never been trained on how to be engaging, right? So that's another piece. And then the third of the communicator piece is they might be just, unremarkable in the first place. Okay. Some people aren't great face to face in the first place. And then you put this virtual magnifying lens on that, and then it makes it even worse. Right. So it's kind of like, I find that the virtual meeting exacerbates whatever issues are there. And then on the communicate, what the other side, the receiving side of this gap that I'm talking about, people are busy, they're distracted, and they have no time. So I see this as kind of a perfect storm of not getting your intended message across, right? Because of these issues. And people are consuming that content on a dopamine spiking device that they'd watch movies, go on social media with. So you're actually competing, and you have to raise your bar in terms of engagement because of those issues. So hopefully that makes sense to your listeners.
And there's, I can imagine that entertaining, walk around magic, entertaining on the street, walking up to strangers on the street, and immediately, try to entertain them. How many seconds do you have to grab their attention?
Not a lot, and depending on the scenario, fewer than you'd almost think. So in a trade show sense, people are usually hiking past your booth at a pretty good rate, pretty good clip, right? So you might have a 1 to 2 second window just to stop them, and then they're past the point of no return. In a street performing sense, some people are kind of wandering around, and they might be watching you from afar, and they might you have a little bit more time to kind of flirt with them, if you will, okay? And then, on a virtual call, well, you're having a meeting with someone, so they're probably going to give you, the time of day. But it's very easy for them to tune out, and maybe, who knows if they're even watching you after a while, right? So I think it depends on the circumstance. But and in the walk around magic, like with that, if it's a busy, and I used to find the higher end of an event, it was the kind of this, maybe the snobbier it might be, that kind of thing. It was like you had to get them and get them to buy into you very quickly. And if you did, then you suddenly had credibility, because people would hear all the laughter, they'd hear the excitement, and they'd want to get in on it. So it made it was just that first group was hard to kind of break into, right? But then you kind of got that social proof happening. So yeah, go ahead, George.
In the trade show scenario, what's more critical? What people first see or what they first hear?
I don't know if I would put it, I'd say the whole package is important to me. So, and this again goes to virtual meetings, goes to anything, is that how people perceive you is going to be a combination of, what they see, what they hear, and maybe what they feel, right? The visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and what they feel might not be you touching them, but it could be, if you're in the same space. It could, but it's that combination of, do they think that this is worth their time is a big piece, right? And so knowing that we're going to deliver value. And this is the spiking of the dopamine. When we talk about, the neuroscience of engagement, we want to spike that dopamine, meaning what's in it for them? Is there a payoff? Why do I want to stick around? And so you always want to be kind of either teasing what's to come or building up the value of what you're about to share. And so in a trade show, I would, and again, this is for your guests who are viewing, but I would give someone a chance to win $2,000. And so just what I just did right now is I fanned out $2,000 in US currency. And it looks kind of nice. It looks kind of cool. And people would see that and they go, whoa, what's that all about? And I'd put the cash down on the floor, and people would be like, what is this guy doing? So we were creating all this kind of interest, and it's a bit of a pattern interrupt too, right? It gains your attention because people don't see that normally, right? So, and again, on the virtual side of things, for virtual engagement, how can you disrupt what people would expect and keep creating contrast, right? That is another big piece of what gains our attention, and if you think of, smells in terms of senses, if something stays the same for a while, you can't smell it anymore, right? But if you go somewhere and you come back, the change, right? So that kind of contrast is important. So in a virtual engagement sense, and if I do this, all of a sudden now I've changed my camera, and you can kind of see my setup a little bit, but this idea that we can actually change what people see instead of them seeing the same thing all the time, right? Just like facial expressions, changing things up. If nothing changes, why bother looking there, right? So I find that contrast is one of those biggest things that the more of that you work in, the more you're going to keep people kind of off balance, and they're going to be seeing something new all the time, and they'll stay engaged, and they'll hear you and see what you're trying to get across.
To be effective at engaging people, to be that entertain. I guess engagement is close to entertaining in some ways. Does one need to be an extrovert?
You know what? I don't think so. I mean, I am one, so I can see that. I feel like when we've been training sales teams, and there might be some sales engineers, so they're kind of they're engineers, but they're also on the front lines, and they'll be kind of doing demos for companies. We work with a lot of software companies. A lot of them have that challenge, and the joke is, how do you tell the extroverted engineer from an introverted engineer? The extroverted engineer will look at your feet, right? Like when looking down, like kind of thing, right? So with that though, I find that if you give people permission to be themselves more, and to be generous with their personality, I find that more engaging. It's more interesting because so people have to reveal more of who they are, and I think when you do that, so it's not like you have to be someone else. You don't have to be this extroverted person, but I think you need to kind of play a bigger version of yourself and allow that person to come out. And that authenticity, like George, you've probably interviewed a lot of people over, the years, and there'll be some people that might just kind of be a little bit, they draw you in because of who they are, right? And that side of things. So I think there is something to be said for that. Now, at the same time, you're going to see the people on TV, and the people who are on camera often are extroverts because they were drawn to that area, right? So that I think there's a lot more examples of extroverts, but again, I just believe it's more about giving of yourself.
Anders, if you were talking to a business leader, perhaps a manager, or even a president, CEO, they're about to have their monthly staff meeting. Mm-hmm. What 3 tips might you give them so that this next staff meeting could be a bit more enjoyable for their audience?
For sure. Good question. And a lot of times we're dealing with kind of the customer facing side of it, right? Because of perception, but internal engagement is some of the things that we're hearing from some of the VPs and the people we're talking to. And one thing I would say for the leader or the manager is, of course, lead by example, right? If you want everyone else to kind of be more engaging, you do it first as well. And so here's a few tips. One of them being more, I believe that you have to deliver 33% more energy than what you thought you needed in the first place. Okay, so a quick kind of story or example is I do a lot of pre-recorded videos for some of our clients for their virtual trade show booths, for social media promos. I'll record magic with a message on camera. So I'll often be talking for like a minute, and then I play it back and I'm like, how was that, right? Like I nailed all the words I wanted to nail. How did it look? And this one client said, Anders, we want this to be really high energy. We want it really peppy. I'm like, oh, don't worry. I can do peppy, and so I would delivered my line, and I'd play it back, and I was like, oh, that's kind of flat. You know, that's not what I thought I just did, right? And then I would do it more, and I'm like, oh man, that's going to be so peppy, I won't be able to even stand watching it, you know. And then it was like, oh, that's just okay. Like it's like you have to. The webcam sucks energy from the meeting, right? So that would be one of the things is deliver more than you think you need just to get to the place where you thought you were. Okay. And so a tip for more energy, and if you can, and if your office setup allows it, is to stand up. If you stand up, all of a sudden now you have better access to your breathing, your diaphragm. Your voice is going to have more energy. You're going to have more resonance because of how your posture is. So that's going to carry weight too, right? The sound of someone's voice, if there are pleasant tones in it, people want to listen, right? So that's one thing. So standing up is going to give you more energy, more access to your breath, better voice, better projection. And the other thing is to get eye level with your camera, and so that we keep trying to mimic, the face-to-face interactions that we have in an in-person event or an in-person meeting. And so one of the things that is it's almost counterintuitive, and it's hard to explain just saying it, but if I look down at you, George, at my screen, that takes my eyes off my camera, which doesn't give you eye contact, which might make you feel disconnected, right? So, getting eye to eye level with your camera, but also delivering that energy, that extra 33% into the camera is now getting to you. And as you look at the screen, I'm talking to you and you're getting eye contact from your screen. Okay. So when we see people who don't give us eye contact, in an in-person thing, yeah, they're either look distracted or they look shady or they look, this kind of thing. And again, when we look at those kind of customer facing interactions, that is not your intended message to be shady, right? You want to be straight with them. You want to be looking them in the eye and communicating with your whole body and being seen. And so that's another advantage too, to going back to standing up, is that, I'm backing up right now so that I stretch my arms out wider. I can express myself more. And sometimes when we're just a talking head on a screen, it doesn't give us the same effect. And what's happening too, from a neuroscience point of view, is our mirror neurons can't fire and can't have that connection because we're not seeing everything that we can understand how it feels. Mirror neurons light up when you grabbed an object. If I hung onto a pen, what that feels like. And, so a prop is another way of creating a little bit more engagement. So I've given you more than 3 there, George, but I get so jazzed about this stuff that I just go off. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I believe the key that I heard is more energy, and there's a few ways, and one of the simplest way to get that is stand up, which your typical meeting, people are sitting, slumping, snoozing. Even people who put their arms on the desk and they're doing this kind of thing, putting their chin on their hand, and then they muffle themselves with their hands, and they just look silly, and they look boring and they look bored. Like, why this is so important? Why can't you show a little bit more energy? So I've seen that happen in meetings. Now, in particular in sales presentations, because these days people are having their sales meeting online instead of going and waiting in the lobby for to go into the boardroom, or even in preference to a phone call, they'll have a Zoom meeting. How can people apply what you just said about engaging your prospect, your customer? What can the salesperson do in the presentation to make it feel more engaging so that the prospect, the client, actually listens and remembers?
Yeah. Well, one of the challenges I find with salespeople is sometimes they have their call and the prospect on the other end doesn't turn their camera on, which is tough because now all of a sudden, at least you can be visual and communicate and they can see you, but sometimes you want to know how you're doing, right? Like you just you want to be able to read that person, right? Especially if you were doing a proposal and you get to the slide that you're sharing and and they see the price, you kind of want to see their eyes to go, oh, or they go, oh, okay, and then you know that you can close. Is there some buying signals happening? So that's what we've talked about too with groups, and we have this up on our blog at Engagify.ai, is that, what are ways we can make people turn their camera on? And so one of the things is going back to saying, hey, 55% of my message is visual, and yours is too. So do you mind turning your camera on so that I could, be able to understand you better? And usually just that kind of logic argument, people go, oh, okay. And it's like, and they're like, well, I didn't do my hair. It's fine. I just rather connect with you. Right. And you come from a sincere place. They'll often turn on their camera, and now you can feel like you have more connection. Right. And it's just, so that's good. The other engaging piece that I would say too is, with, of course, using visuals. So slides is something people do. What we tend to do with our slides though is we use a special piece of software called OBS, and it's a free piece of software, but it enables us to split our screen. And so what happens, what I find is that there's a lot of, times where we're sharing our screen and it really slows us down, right? And we're kind of going in and out. And when we share a screen, often what ends up happening too is that it makes us tiny, right, in the Zoom call. And so what we do, and this is more for your visual visitors here, but I can split my screen so I can have my slide to the side of me, and then I can then take it back if I want to express myself and take the whole screen. So the idea of being able to change those visuals on the fly very effortlessly, not only is it interesting visually, but also because you're doing it without, again, the whole, okay, a second, let me share my slide. That whole searching around, trying to do this and talking your way through, something that is should be very kind of customary. It gives your prospects kind of a feeling of, oh, I'm in good hands here. Look how well he handles himself. You're building trust because of the confidence that you're instilling. So that's another way that one of the things we teach is just to kind of take that higher level of handling visuals while presenting. Yeah.
Now, Anders, for those that are only listening, I'm just going to comment on what I just saw there. You just went from just you on the screen to you on about not quite a half, but a little bit under a half. And on the other half of the screen is a slide, is an image. And it was instant. I didn't see you hunting around with a control, no hands, and now it's switched back.
Yeah, it's a foot pedal. So there's ways that you can use
a foot pedal. Wow.
Yeah, here I'll even show you here. So I'm gonna. So this is one of our secrets. Is that so the foot pedal? I've got one. This one is for this main camera. This is for the split screen, and this is for. Oh, sorry. This one is for so you can see the setup. And so that's a third camera up at an angle for the people listening. And so because I can go back and forth and flip through it, and it just gives me control. And again, with Zoom and some of these platforms, like we're talking engagement here, George, there's a lot going on. There's the technology, right? The platform, the gear piece. There's the content. How do you make that engaging, right? And then there's the other side of it is the performance of this. So there's kind of multiple layers happening. So right now I'm kind of showing off a little bit of the platform side of things just to kind of make it smoother and easier for people. But yeah, this has been kind of a great change for us that's enabled us just to be more fluid, just to put people at ease with our visuals.
And what resonated with me, Anders, is you just reinforced the message for people that it's not only your content. I mean, that's been an ongoing problem for presenters for decades. People who think, oh, I'll just cover the content. It doesn't matter. I'll just read my slides or I'll read my notes and I'll tell them what they need to know. But performance has always been a critical factor in how the content is received and what's the actual received message. So that's always been an issue, but that becomes even more critical now in this event. And the added third piece there is the technology. So for those people who are sitting around thinking, oh, it's going to go back to normal anytime now, why bother investing in any cameras or lights or even learning how to use this stuff? Hey, people, wake up. We're going to be doing this for a while. And the ones who are going to win are the ones who are actually investing in themselves and the equipment and improving their delivery.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing trends too in the sales industry of companies who are doing well enough, right? They're making their numbers. And now suddenly that sales budget that used to be associated to them traveling and meeting with customers and wining and dining is not possibly going to be there because they're doing well with virtual meetings. And the other thing we're seeing too is that customers are actually enjoying the sales process because they can get out of a meeting, you know, if they heard what they need to hear, like, I got to go, click, right? And it's not like you got to see these people out the door and thank them and shake their hands. And there's less small talk on the front end because, hey, we're having this meeting, let's do it, right? And it's kind of, everyone's back to back with these virtual meetings. So, you know, it isn't a trend that's going to go away, right? So, you know, we advise people to kind of, you know, equip themselves, get equipped to engage, and so that you can have that kind of production value that looks good, and then people want to watch you, want to listen to you. You know, having a microphone that sounds nice, because just, you know, garbled sound, or if you don't have a good enough internet connection, it's cutting in and out. It's very easy for people just to not want to pay attention. And so we often say, first, do no harm, right? It's like the Hippocratic Oath kind of thing, is that, like, let's get that base level going. And then we can talk about some of these other engagement tactics and skills to bring into it. But let's make sure they can see you well, they can hear you well. And then at least we have a place to start. Yeah.
Anders, I know you have a program, an online program for those who want to boost their online delivery skills and knowledge. And you have a special offer for listeners of this podcast.
Yeah.
And I believe the offer is 33% savings, which for those who are a little slow on the math, that means a third off, folks. And
you know why I did it 33%? Because that's that extra 33% energy we have to deliver. So, you know, you're going to remember it that way, and you're going to have that kind of savings off that. And that is exclusively for your intended message listeners. So there'll be a link in the show notes, I believe.
It'll be in the notes. And for those who are taking notes right now, here is the address for that. It's ZURL, so ZURL, ZURL.co/. Now, okay, here's where it gets a little tricky. Capital W, number 6, small y, capital V. I'll tell you that last part again. So after the /, it's capital W, number 6, Y, small letter, and then big V. And if you go there, you will find the program, the online program training with videos and checklists and templates, how you can make your online delivery far more engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Anders, as a magician, as a one-time magician, performer, street performer, if you could offer people just 3 tips or techniques that they can build on from lessons you learned in that magician stage, when you went through that, when you learned to, and I'm guessing that sometimes you bombed. Sometimes it didn't work well. And you probably learned the biggest lessons from those failures. That's when you went and said, oh, well, don't do that again, or forgot to do that. So what secrets can the magician tell us?
That question, George, has got my mind going. One of the biggest things is, you know, how you start matters a lot. And you know this from speaking, you know this from, you know, other things, is that it's very hard to recover if that first impression is not the intended message that you wanted to deliver, right? If that first piece is kind of like, I remember one time I was doing a show and my intro music messed up, and it started having a mind of its own, playing all kinds of music, and it's just like I could not get back to where I needed to be, and it was, my frustration was obvious. It was tough to do. So, you know, starting strong. When as a magician, I remember the first trick I'd always do was something I could never mess up. Right? It was just so solid that if I could do that, everyone started having fun, I could relax, and everything would go well. So starting strong is critical. For creating that connection or that rapport, oftentimes you kind of have to interrupt people's sense of things, right? To get that attention. So when I was, you know, when I was doing the walk around magic, when we were talking, and you had to interrupt a group of people, you know, I would say something like, "Oh, hey, sorry to interrupt. Remember your topic, and when I'm done, you can just jump right back in that conversation." And it was kind of a little bit of like, I was kind of calling out the moment of, yeah, I'm interrupting you. You know what I mean? And it had a little bit of a built-in joke into it, but it worked every time. You know, and so this idea of kind of finding little, almost like go-to moments that you can use that people go, "Oh yeah, that's kind of funny." Like one of the things we do in our sales presentations is we show our logo list, right? And then when we say, "Oh, you know what, there's a little bit of space here, let's move this one out of the way," and one of the logos animates, and then their logo appears, and it's this kind of a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I've built their company into it, and it's you focused. That's one of the things that, you know, people love to be involved in it, and it's this kind of like little moment, little joke that helps people, you know, connect and feel welcome. So so that's those things. You're going to find things that work every time, and then you can lean on them and use them. Okay. And then a third thing, I'm trying to think of what that third thing from magic. You know what? I think, you know, the willingness to engage is a piece that is missing these days. We're so in our own world, on our phones, head down, shut down, that I think we need to kind of force ourselves to take some risks. And so some of the things I would do when I was doing magic, I was getting paid to entertain people, and I had to be the one to take the initiative. You know, I was motivated because I wanted to get paid. And so I sometimes think we don't take enough risks to, you know, kind of put ourselves out there and see if people will respond to what we're putting out there, you know. And when there is engagement, one party must go first. Someone has to go first in order to create that engagement. And so take it upon yourself to be that person and take risks.
My guest today is Anders Boulanger. He's a specialist in engagement. His message is to be engaging and do no harm.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you know, I think we need to, to create engagement, one must be engaging. And I think there's a lot that goes into that.
If you like what you heard, remember to like, comment, and share this podcast. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you convey your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.